So in this video we are going to be continuing to take a look at a scenario where civilization starts over. We are now on episode 32 of the series, and in the last episode we saw the first part of World War I. The war started between the Triangle and the Parallelogram Alliance after Indonesia assassinated the King of Bangladesh, who is going down here to Australia. The Indians found out through spies in Indonesia, and the war was started. In the last episode of the war, we did see it escalate quite a lot, and now pretty much all of this region of the world in the Indian Ocean area is now involved in the war. And at the very end, we saw Egypt bring the Diamond Alliance into the war. If you do end up enjoying this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe, and let's get straight into it. So we are going to be beginning exactly where we left off. So like I just said, the Diamond Alliance joined the war to help kick out India's influence from the Middle East, and this is mostly in Persia, and then down here in the southern tip of Arabia. So yeah, these guys will be joining the war to hopefully put a stop to that. So the Persian forces who were able to kind of take hold of Mesopotamia are now going to be very overwhelmed. Egypt had fully prepared their alliance before they joined in on the war, so it's not like they've only just started the preparations. These guys are all ready. Unfortunately for them, however, down south, the Somalians will get the first hand, and they will take the start invading into this Arabian country right over here. These guys were quite unprepared for this. We do see Qatar manage to make some pushback, however they do not manage to reconnect with their capital, and the Persians are going to be further pushed back. However, it's not going all bad for India, as down in Africa some very good events take place. First off, all of this land over here, which was disconnected in the last episode, finally surrenders over, and the guerrilla fighters in here, after being demoralised and they're really running out of supplies now, they are going to be pushed back a lot, especially in this Sahel area over here. Over in Southeast Asia, the Chinese are going to be continuing a push on to Vietnam, and Vietnam is kind of falling at this point. However, the Koreans will have a pretty big success point here as they meet up with the river that Beijing's capital lies on the other side of. This yellow country right here did decently in the last episode, however now Bangladesh is going to focus some forces on it, and they are going to be pushed back very heavily. They are, like I said in the last episode, not a very strong country at all. And to make things even worse, we see another country joining in against these guys. And that is going to be this green country up here. These guys basically just want land, as they are kind of struggling at the minute. So they will join in and blitz down straight towards the capital, causing a lot of threat for this country. The Indians will kind of mirror this, and the country will be cut in two and the capital falls over. Over here in West China, these forces do push back a little bit, however these guys are starting to feel very demoralised, and the people are calling for an end to the war. However, something has just happened that will be a big motivator to the Indonesians and all members of their alliance. And that is the 3-Point Star Alliance joins the war on the side of Indonesia. Now, the 3-Point Star Alliance, which is led by Volga and the light blue country, or more recently Russia has kind of been dominating this alliance. But this alliance, they are very kind of isolationist, but they're isolationist in a group. So these guys all work together and they don't really like interacting with other countries. And recently, Persia has been looking very hungry over this country right here. If you don't know, Persia originated in this country. They originated around this Caspian area. But when Baikal moved over and invaded, they were forced to their colony, which is down here. And they have been kind of looking to take this land back. However, of course, they can't really do so, as they are a member of the 3-Point Star Alliance. India has also been spreading their influence into this region, like I had said. This had been the reason that the Diamond Alliance had joined the war, and it's the exact same reason why these guys do. There are a lot of trade routes in this country that India has tried to be taking dominance over, and these guys have had enough of it. They will be joining in the war. Now, the effect of them joining in the war is very major. Volgan and Russian forces smash down the border right here and just blast straight into Persian territory, capturing 3 major cities and all of this Caspian area. This causes Persia to absolutely crash out, and they just they try and just fight everything at once, but it really doesn't go well. This causes a lot of disorganisation in the front, however, not for Somalia. Somalia is really able to hold their own weight here, especially with them moving a lot of forces out of Africa, with some of these forces falling. So these guys are able to hold their own weight, but some other countries aren't. Like I just showed here, Qatar is able to liberate the areas around their capital, and they now push on down south. Back over in Southeast Asia, Burma is able to make a bit of a push up north, capturing a major city, but now we're going to be focusing over here in this Tamil area, as there's a lot of interesting stuff going on down here. So, in the last episode, Indonesia had made a landing here, and this episode they are going to be continuing to push on. However, with some logistical issues over here in Southeast Asia, they are kind of outnumbered. China is really locking in now. They are going into full conscription mode. These guys are needing to send a lot of troops over here. And really, Indonesia's army is very spread out. However, India's army is argued that it is even more spread out, so we are seeing some small success. We can see now that Indonesia has entered into the extremely populated areas of India near their capital, and they start to get dangerously close. However, luckily for India, a new distraction does open up, and that is down here in Australia. The French will be joining in on the war on the side of Indonesia. Now, the reason the French do this is, number one, they have a lot of good trade deals with India, and they don't want to lose it if India loses the war, and two, they are looking to maybe take over some of this Indonesian Australian land. They are quite land hungry, I guess. They did lose out on their colony over here in South America, and ever since then they've been building their colonial empire in other parts of the world, like Africa as well. So these French forces quickly move into this Indonesian territory. They also help liberate some of this Indian land down here, especially on the coast. And very quickly the Indonesians start to lose control over this area. This land over here is cut in two, and the French take a lot of this peninsula area, isolating a very large Indonesian force right here on the tip. This, along with China making a breakthrough in the Vietnamese front lines, causes Indonesia to retreat quite a lot of forces, allowing India to make a very large pushback, even moving in to this country. Their capital is also sieged, and very quickly their success is turned around. However, despite that, it is still not going all well for India, as India over here is quite outnumbered. Persia is starting to feel very stressed out about this situation, and Qatar continues to push into India. Over in Western China, however, good news for the blue team, as all of their main areas over here fall and they are kind of just reduced to the Himalayan region. Next up, over here in Western China, they continue to fall over, and at this point, like, people are rioting everywhere. They are calling for an end of this war. They have lost, like, most of their main area over here, so these people are really just, they're like, can we please just leave the war? And a lot of revolts start to take place. Over here, this country is actually able to see some success, as Indian logistical issues prove to cause a lot of issues for their front lines. However, down south here, Indonesia is fully kicked out of the Indian subcontinent. However, they do maintain a presence in Sri Lanka. Over here in Southeast Asia, Vietnam does manage to make a pushback. However, it is at this point where Burma has exhausted themselves, they are tired of war, and their capital is captured by Bangladesh, and the country falls over, and it's kind of needing to be occupied by Vietnam, who does see some pushback in this area. Vietnam is basically the last line of defense for Indonesia here, as they aren't really putting too many troops on this front line. Now, they are putting a lot of forces on this front line, but they are also having to send troops like to loads of other places. But with these Indian forces now kicking them out, a lot of the forces that were fighting here are in this subcontinent area, so they are able to see quite a big pushback. And they even liberate the capital of Vietnam. Well, not liberate, but they meet up with the river that it borders on, and they begin to siege it. And it's here where the war reaches a very long stalemate period. Sides become evenly matched, as while the red side does hold an advantage in numbers, they have been exhausted from this war, and the manpower of the blue side is proving to be effective. However, this stalemate is ended when an extremely large event is going to be taking place, and that is going to be up here in Europe. So, the 3 Point Star Alliance joined the war, and they joined the war on the side of the Indonesians. And there is a country right now who is not too big of a fan of Russia, Sweden. And as I had shown with the power rankings at the start of last episode, the Swedish, they are not the strongest country in the world anymore, and they are starting to get worried that they are losing power and influence. And what better way to continue to maintain that power and influence than join the war against another country? So, to kind of kick the Russians out of their area and hopefully regain some influence and power, The Swedish will be joining the war on the side of the Indians, and they are going to be bringing their whole alliance with them. This is a massive W for the Indians. This kind of saved them here, and this event makes a lot of other countries worried. So, with the Swedish in the war, they begin to advance in. They're pretty much their only front line against the Russians is in the Baltic country, so Swedish forces flow into the Baltic country, and then they storm into Russia. They cross the border quickly and capture this one major city, and they even start to approach the capital. This causes the 3-point Star Alliance to rapidly withdraw some forces away from Persia, and this finally allows Persia to make some pushbacks. However, still notably down here, the red team down here is still doing quite well, and Mesopotamia even manages to get very close to the capital of Persia. We also see Qatar continue to advance, and the Saudi Arabian country over here pushes back the Somalians. The guerrilla fighting over here now starts to get very intense as supply routes by the Somalian country kind of flow in here, and the Indonesian forces, they still fight here. They are very accustomed to this land, and it's causing a lot of these troops to now have to move over here, as it's becoming increasingly difficult to garrison this land, which is why we're seeing this pushback. Over in Central Asia, this, yellow, country is finally going to fall. The Indians and the green team are going to work together to destroy this country, and I'm just going to change their colour a bit because it's a bit confusing with this guy. And with that, it's kind of all over for this Western Chinese country, and we're actually going to see something very interesting happen. And that is we see multiple revolts break out all throughout this country of a very interesting ideology, and these guys are looking to pull these guys out of the war and just reform their government as a stronger country. These guys are the fascists. So these fascist rebels who have been gaining support, they are promising these people, peace and exit of the war. Their three main promises are peace, land. They promise to give the regular peasant workers in this country a lot of farmland, which right now the government controls, and bread. They promise to give these guys food. I'm sure we haven't heard anything like this in real life, surely not. But anyway, these guys quickly gain control of the country, and their government, who is kind of setting themselves up very quickly, they decide to pull out of the war, and these other countries respect that. As Western China exits the war, this is a very big blow for the red team, and it's starting to look up for the blue side. To add on to this, after an Indian naval landing is successful in Sri Lanka, the Indonesians are fully kicked off the island. And seeing what happened over here with the fascists taking control of this country, something similar in Indonesia starts to brew, as these people are also sick of war, and the fascist party, which isn't very strong in this country, but they see they kind of follow in the footsteps of this guy, and they begin to consolidate power, hoping to pull out of this war. This is kind of added to as all of Australia falls over, as Indonesia puts some military in here, and Persia sees some success against the Mesopotamians, even now meeting up with the Caspians and pushing into their country. Over here in Russia, the Swedish continue to see immense success, these guys are doing extremely well, and it's actually going to get so bad that after the capital of Russia falls, the Russians are just really not wanting to continue this, and with the Persians continuing to storm the Caspian country, Volga, for the best interest of their alliance, will sign a peace agreement with India and Sweden, and the 3-point Star Alliance decides to pull out of the war. Probably a smart decision. So that's an extremely big blow for the red team and the Indonesians. Another thing, finally, the guerrilla fighters over here in this African colony, they run out of resources, and it's Jova for those guys. They fall over. And India starts to see rapid success in Qatar. They invade into the puppet state and they hope it rebels. However, this puppet state is extremely loyal to Qatar. It's been part of them for hundreds of years, and it never really was a separate identity. So they have to launch a brutal invasion of it, and it kind of leads into these guys kind of occupying some of the land as Qatar officially falls over. But now we need to look at Egypt, because some very sketchy stuff is currently happening. Now, a foreign power right now is seeing Egypt's involvement in this war as potentially quite dangerous. They have they have a certain involvement with Egypt at this point, and they don't want to risk India going in and taking Egypt and kind of taking this involvement for themselves. So this mystery country, which I'll let you guys guess in the comments, they will be funding a coup in Egypt. The brother of the current Egyptian king, he is in support of this foreign country, and he will overthrow the current king of Egypt. And he will actually be pulling out of the Diamond Alliance. And this was very unexpected, but this foreign power successfully gets Egypt out of the war, and this will cause their ambitions to not be threatened by India. With Egypt leaving, the Diamond Alliance essentially just falls apart. Persia absolutely slams straight into Mesopotamia, taking their capital for the second time, and with Mesopotamia completely falling and this guy being invaded, the Diamond Alliance officially surrenders and is kind of made. And this kind of only happens when Turkey leaves the alliance. And this guy's weak, and this guy is also weak, so there's not really any point of fighting. And looking at the current state of the war now, it is really no longer looking very good for Indonesia. All of these forces, which are now free, absolutely blast straight into Vietnam. They just completely decimate the country. We also see at this point Taiwan is landed on again in the Philippines, and the Chinese island hop down into these islands, and even do the same into these Indonesian Filipino islands. Now getting very close to Borneo, which is kind of the main island of Indonesia. Well, technically it's Sumatra, but there is a lot of important stuff going on in this island, so losing it would be very bad. And now mainland Indonesian territory is crossed into as Indian forces move into the country and begin to go down the peninsula. These islands over here fall, and the French begin to make a lot of landings on these over here. The Indonesians refuse to surrender. They have an immense hatred for India, and their leaders are very delusional. They somehow believe they can still win the war. This causes India to have to fight a brutal war down the peninsula. The Indian Navy kind of moves down into this area, and they bombard the waters around. Brutal naval battles take place. These naval battles last absolutely ages, and after each of them there's no real clear winner on either side. The Indians kind of just surround the islands here, and the Chinese do the same thing with this water. And Indonesia is kind of just getting surrounded. Over here, the Alaskan Indonesian colony decides to remain loyal. They don't break away. They basically just refuse to fight. They just kind of okay, we'll stay with you, but we're not doing it anymore. We're just out. We want to just leave. And then something very big is going to happen. After the Indians successfully manage to make a landing on Java and Timor and all of these islands down here, it's kind of just over for Indonesia. And a fascist revolt, very similar to the one we saw over here in West China, breaks out. The people have finally had enough. And yeah, they take control of the capital as well as Borneo, and Indonesia officially surrenders on the 17th of May 1895, putting an official end to this war as the fascists kind of just take control of the country. Now, interestingly, the Indonesian royal family kind of went over here to Alaska and they fled over here, and these guys never really fall over, so that's quite interesting to see there. But apart from that, the war is officially over. So the outcome of this war is basically just India now has full dominance finally, and we can finally now maybe see some peace in the Indian Ocean. The tension has been dealt with, and yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at this very large peace treaty to the First World War. So I think this is everything for the peace treaty. This took me quite a while to draw, and I did change some things about it a few times. But I think for the most part this is good now. So yeah, let's have an overview of it. So first thing, let's go over to Europe. So if I turn the alliance layer on as well, we can see that the 3-point star alliance is mostly fine. They did leave the war very quickly. Literally all that happened was this country was forced to leave it, and Russia lost some land up here to Kola. But for the most part these guys are fine. Down here in Africa, the purple team got a little bit of land out of the Indonesian colony, and the rest was given independence, and this Lime country returns. The Somalian country also got some of it, and they also got some land out of Arabia. So did India. into Qatar, and Persia got this UAE country and they expanded their borders quite a lot. The Diamond Alliance was forced to split up mostly because of that weird sketchy stuff that happened with Egypt. A foreign power influenced them to leave the war. Over here in India, they expanded a lot. They absorbed their puppet states and some land up here, and they set up a new one where the Mint country once was. This country up here lost some land. Oh yeah, also the Triangle Alliance is still fine, and the Parallelogram Alliance got forced to split up. Bangladesh got some land. This country lost a lot of land, and they, if we look at the ideologies there, which I've updated, they are now fascist, as well as Indonesia down here. So we got some new countries over here, and the Indians got control over the Strait of Malacca. Australia was split up a lot, and there's two new countries here. Over here, Japan is released. This country over here didn't gain anything from Korea because Korea kind of like just left the war. They weren't allowed to take it, but they did leave the war. China got some land. They are now a little bit ugly, but we'll have to deal with it. And yeah, so Indonesia is now fascist, and the original Indonesian rather. I don't know why I keep getting those two confused. But the original government fled over here, so Indonesia now technically exists, but in Alaska and Hawaii. So this leads to a pretty interesting dispute. But I think that is everything with the peace treaty. There are a few things I want to talk about as well. So this has caused some economical issues, of course, with a lot of economies being destroyed from this. And over the next few episodes we will explore more on that, as well as the growing shift in ideologies. But I really hope you did enjoy World War One, and I hope the peace treaty is up to your guys' liking. Just an important notice here, there will be a little bit of a break from Wixo episodes because I am going on holiday, and I didn't manage to find any time to pre-record. I've been quite busy in real life. So there will be a short break from Wixo, but when it returns in about a week from this video posting, probably a bit less than that actually, I can assure you that it will be good. So I hope you guys will be looking forward to that, and I will see you there.